Hey everybody, Tony Gonzalez with Garage Composites. We often hear from our dealers that cost of doing business is going up and margins just keep getting smaller, and that's exactly why we decided to partner with MiCamp. MiCamp works with powersports and auto dealerships nationwide to help reduce or even eliminate thousands of dollars in credit card processing fees. They do this through lowered rates or fully compliant dual pricing and surcharge programs. Garage Composites recently switched our own processing over to MiCamp, and it was super simple. Kylie and Lauren over at MiCamp ran a quick analysis of our current processing statements, showed us exactly how they could cut our monthly fees by 25%, and then had our system converted and running smoothly within a week. After working with their team, we wanted to partner so that our listeners can benefit from the same savings. MiCamp has agreed to help offset any upfront conversion costs for GarageCast listeners. If you want to see how they can help your business, you can email them at garagecomposites@micamp.com. garagecomposites@micamp.com. That is MiCamp. garagecomposites@micamp.com to schedule a meeting with their dedicated team. We hope you use them. We're super happy with them. Hey everybody, on this episode of GarageCast, we talked to Melanie, Bosley, Bloomfield, and Stephen Osborne of Century Marine. Melanie is a second-generation owner of the dealership, and Steve is what they call the sales guru / concierge / name it, customer relations guru. And we talk everything about customer service to community involvement, and we even pop in a little bit of AI in the future of what it looks like to shop in the marine space. Stay tuned for this episode of GarageCast. This is a show for anybody that has something that they want to say. It's going to be full of people with a lot of energy, CEOs, OEMs, vendors.
Best practice ideas in this industry and of neighboring industries.
We're talking to people that are on the cutting edge of processes, management.
Serial entrepreneurs, authors. We really have a feast of all different types of senior level people.
A cornucopia, as it were.
A plethora, maybe. Grab a pen, grab a cup of coffee, and have a seat. Start writing. This is GarageCast.
GarageCast. Welcome to GarageCast. Sam Dantzler, Tony Gonzalez. I'm pretty happy today as my clouds are full. They're gray, and there's snow coming out of them.
Right now?
Yeah, so that's pretty cool because up until this morning, there was this magical little area on the ski area, and it was the only place on the ski area that was getting snow. Was just like 2 runs that was coming down. I don't know how the snow focused itself onto that run. Maybe it was savvy marketing or technology.
Maybe he was thinking about Diego, your ski jumping kid. Like, I just need to put it on the landing spot where Diego's going to hit and call it a day. I was shorts and t-shirt yesterday. Here we are, second half of November. So yeah, I'm glad to see some snow in the hills.
Yeah. So, hey man, let's just jump right into this. We got greatness in our presence, right? So
let's go.
We have Melanie Bosley Bloomfield. She's the owner, operator, president, viceroy, secretary, treasurer, vice president of
Master of the Universe. You guys say
Master of the Universe.
It's clear.
Century Marine. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And then we also have Steve Osborne, and Steve is the sales manager, customer relations guru. I think you also said Steve concierge, like you're the concierge as well. So you're a concierge. I like that.
He does
you are
do that.
Essentially a white glove guy that just takes them front to back with a great experience. Yeah.
Wonderful to be here. Yes. Yeah. Add a few more words on there, whatever makes me feel better. I love it. That sounded great. Thank you.
I already have a few for you, but I'm going to keep them to myself.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, hey, we're going to let Dantzler kick this off with Melanie. Fire away, man. And let's get into this.
Yeah. Well, most of the contacts where we initially were starting up the marine side of the 20 Club business was through MRAA, and we reached out to a lot of OEMs. Tony, we did a lot of work with Correct Craft at the time. Thomas Bates was a key contact for us, and we launched a Centurion Supreme 20 Club, which is a subset of the Correct Craft family. And Melanie was one of the initial people. You were either right out of the gate or one of the first, meeting 2 maybe that you started coming to it, Melanie? Does that sound right?
I think it was meeting 1.
You were right out of the gate. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was me and Boardco and Ski Doc.
Yeah. And then we had, was it Garrett from Linwood also in that?
Linwood, yes.
Power Sports and Marine, and slowly building that group up. And she's been there from the beginning. And Well, it's just kind of funny. She just cleaned house at the dealer show last week. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I've seen what she's been able to do. And, yeah, we had Neil Pascal. Tony was with that group for a while after we kicked it off. And then we put Glow in there, and they identified with Glow right out of the gate. And I think, Melanie, you and Glow seem to get along swimmingly, as I'm told. So I think that's pretty cool. Anyhow, after seeing her at the dealer show, which was in Nashville a couple weeks ago, I said, we need to get Melanie on. So here we go, Tony. Melanie is right here with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Melanie, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into there. And then I want to talk about your dad right out of the gate.
In 79, my parents started the dealership. My dad was a mechanical engineer working at Motorola, but he loved water skiing. So he decided to buy one boat at a time, start selling it, and eventually quit Motorola, opened up a dealership. And I watched them work so hard to become where we are right now. They're very impressive people.
Well, he seemed very impressive, and you were pretty happy to have him there with you at the show. Tell us a little bit about your dad. Why did I could think cell phones back in the day versus boats, and I'd probably make the same decision, but what was the allure? I mean, the Motorola StarTAC was out back then, right?
Cell phones and cell phone 79. We're still talking like backpacks and stuff like that, right?
Yes. In fact, so they opened up a shop. So they started out of our living room. And then from there, they opened up a shop. And my mother would run it during the day while my dad went to Motorola. To make things work, first he had a pager, and we would have to page him, and he would have to call us back. Then he got one of the Motorola pack phones.
Oh, yes, nice.
So he did have the suitcase. So if we had questions, we could call him. And he went from that to the brick.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So he utilized a Motorola while he was working there and opening up the dealership. But
Nice.
I helped them as well. So when I got out of school, then I would go work at the dealership. My brother worked there doing the boat mechanics. And the four of us ran the dealership. And my mother would leave and go take care of the rest of the kids. They had 8 children. So she would leave to take care of the rest of the kids once I came in after school to run the shop at, 14 years old, until my dad got off work and came in.
Wow. So you did standard story of just a family business, and that's what you did through junior high school. You were in the dealership running the show and doing the whole thing with the family.
Yeah, everything from scrubbing toilets to selling water skis to wiping down boats and scrubbing them down as well.
Tony, let's not skip right past the fact that she said, and then she started running the dealership. 14 years old, 8 siblings, and she's running the dealership. Now you know what you need to know about Melanie and why we're talking to her today, right? Melanie, what were the boats? What were the brands back then? What were you carrying?
So my parents started out with Gulfstream, which is a inboard-outboard out of Utah. And they went from there because my dad he had some friends that water skied. So him and my mom were really into water skiing. And then actually Centurion came to my dad and said, "Hey, we have this great new water ski boat. Will you try it out?" And my dad said, "Sure," the Centurion. So he took it out, tested it, and he became a dealer. And that was in 1984. So that's how we started with Centurion. But through the years, we've always carried Centurion, but we have had other manufacturers throughout the years. We've had other runabouts. We've had Regal, Sea Swirl, several other manufacturers of inboard outboards. We did bass boats for a minute. And we've always stuck, though, and our bread and butter has always been the inboards.
Yeah, for the listeners out there, will you do us a favor and give us the area and where the dealerships are so we know where those are?
Sure. So both of our dealerships are in Arizona. We did have one in Utah, which my brother runs, and we decided since he's not doing the same brands we are, we let him take off and run his own, but he still is a part of our dealership here since he helped build it. So Mesa is really Phoenix, Mesa, Tempe, kind of is where our main dealership is, and that's where we started, was Mesa, Gilbert, Tempe area. The other dealership is actually on a marina at Lake Pleasant, which is about an hour and a half west of us. And we have that as our second dealership.
Okay, cool. Super cool. So you worked your way up from scrubbing toilets, and now you're the president of the operation. So give us your background, how you ended up overseeing 3 locations. I mean, obviously, if you started there as with child labor, there's a ton of Bosleys on staff. Are they all in the fold, or family business all along? They've been in this, doing this. So give us some background on what's going on there.
One of the things that I love about how my parents ran this dealership was this dealership really was family run from the beginning. And I can tell you that every single one of my siblings, their spouses, and their children have at one point in time worked here. Most of them as a stepping stone while they were going to college or while they were in high school. But it gave all of them an opportunity to learn a business and to grow. So right now, we only have me, 2 of my brothers, a nephew, and my dad, who actually still comes in for about 3 hours every day. That's what we have now. My mother passed away in 2017. So in November of 2017, so this month of 2017.
So I got a question for you is, in Sam and I both in moderating for decades, you just hear there's rarely instances where family businesses, man, are just clicking right along, right? Because there's the parents to the child, and then there's the children that have siblings, and then that can create some stuff, and then you bring in the kids of the siblings, which are the grandparents to the original owners, and man, stuff can get pretty murky. It is a rare day where I see a family-run business. It's like, oh man, we're as smooth can be. So what's it really like doing that? And has it always been a peaceful journey?
There have definitely been times that some of the other employees have been a little uncomfortable with our conversations to each other. There's been some, between my brother and I, some disagreements that got loud. There were times I would be embarrassed to tell you I was not as respectful to my parents as I should have been. But we always had enough respect for each other that at the end of the day, the only thing that mattered was our relationship. And so at the end of the day, we would find a center. My parents were in charge. And so I would always let go and do what they requested. But my parents are workaholics. They taught us to be workaholics. So we have always been the first ones in and the last ones out. If something needs to be done, we get in there and we do it. We don't wait for it to get done. The biggest hiccup with that is the third generation coming in who never saw what we built. They never saw how hard we worked. They never saw that if there's nobody to clean that toilet, even though that's not my job, that toilet's getting cleaned by me. They never saw that. So it was difficult with the third generation to say, listen, my dad expected more of me than anybody else in the company. He expected me to work harder than anybody else in the company. And that's what I expect of you. They finally started to come around to that, and they're doing better. But there are definitely some difficult moments.
I think that is not only probably familial, that's probably generational as well, where, there's probably some of your nephews and nieces that already want to be the president of Century Marine because, hey, I got the last name and I kind of know how to water ski and surf. So give me my title. But,
right.
on the other end of life, though, it'd be interesting to see what that generation brings to the company as far as technology, maybe some advertising and marketing differences that they have, just a different mind than we do for sure,
Yeah, most of them have moved on to their own thing. There actually aren't, I don't have more than one third generation here right now, and that's my nephew. And he is in the process of learning. I have put him on some tasks involving some old inventory, putting him on Facebook, marketing him, putting him on eBay, getting rid of the old inventory that way. We do have, in that generation, we have a couple of other people that I am working on tasking with things like figuring out AI for us and figuring out better marketing plans for us, and just that generation, what they see out in the world that they can teach us, because we get so consumed in being right here that we don't look outside sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's usually followed by, hey, you got to spend money to make money, right? Like, where do you think the money came from, Gen 3?
Always.
Does your dad come in and solve it, drop the hammer? Like, hey, here's the solution.
No,
he gets on you.
He leaves it to me.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, I got to bring you in here. You're like you're like Melanie's bodyguard on our screen, just looking down, making sure we're asking appropriate questions. Who are these two guys over here? I almost said shenanigans, and I don't want to get in trouble with that F&I provider from the dealer show again, so I'll retract that word. But Steve, let's get you in here as a sales manager and the customer service guru. Tell us a little bit about how you fit in with Centurion and what's your long-term play here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love selling boats. Obviously, I've been in sales most of my life, and listening to Melanie talk about her family, I had an opportunity to get to know Melanie and her family and Bruce at a very young age when I was run over by a boat at 14 years old. And through a course of events, my leg was amputated. And Bruce, as they were trying to recreate the accident from a legal standpoint, like, how did this happen? He was so willing and able and just eager to be like, I want to help. This is rough on your family. And he came up, he brought up a boat. They recreated, how could this happen? How could they not turn the boat in time? And at that time, we were avid boaters. I was 14 years old. I'm the youngest of a family of 5. I grew up boating. So it was a big, big time in our life where you're like, wow, is this going to change everything? And fast forwarding ahead, the best thing that my dad ever did for me was made me get back in the water a year later after being an amputee and having a major amount of damage done to my body. And he said, hey, you need to get back on that horse. And I saw Melanie's family, after being around Bruce, being in their store, even though I wasn't buying boats from them at the time, I was a stern drive guy. And of course, now we know that the majority of the market is ruled by wakeboard and V-drive boats. And so for years, I would go in there out in my 20s and in my 30s, and I would visit with Melanie and Bruce. And I'm sure they looked at me like, you're never going to buy a boat for me, are you? You're just one of those guys that loves to come in and visit. And then they would walk out and be like, he's just never going to buy a boat from me. But we developed this rapport, and even up to this day, my dad passed away 5 years ago from cancer. And so I love to go into Bruce's office when he's there and visit, because I don't have that father figure in my life. And they were both very endearing people. You love to talk to them. You love to reminisce about boats and the history, and a lot of similarities of what we had as I took a passion into boats. And so it was a natural fit as I came out from different businesses, and Melanie said, hey, it started kind of slow. She said, hey, would you be willing to go up and do some lake testing on some boats? And then would you start doing demos? And we started to work together, and we realized this is a great team. This is a great effort. And I take after my dad, where he always would tell me this statement about, hey, I take an interest in people. People, as you take an interest in them, it creates self-esteem. It creates value. And that's what I started to do. And so Melanie, as wise as she is, said, hey, why don't you come, let's work together, and let's work in unison, and I'll work this side, you work that side. And it took off to where next thing you know, we have started to build something, and it started to grow, and started to that snowball became bigger and bigger. And it was just through working together and understanding each other's strengths, what we could do to benefit the business as a whole, and our passion. Because that's what you're selling, right? You're selling a passion. You're selling something that you love, and you're selling, as you said, Sam, at the dealer meeting, I've always felt the same way. You're selling that picture. You're selling that photograph. And is it blurry? Is it fuzzy? Can they see it really well? Do they love it? What needs to be fixed on it? And so we've taken it from there, and we've run with it. And and we've had a great time, and we've had some growing pains, and that's through growth, through pains you get growth, and that's what I love. So that's where I've kind of slotted in to be able to be that front man and that build that base of networking.
And can I interject there as well?
Please.
So one of the things I saw in Steve, so I learned what I learned by following my parents around and listening to them. I learned how to take a customer on a demo by my dad. I learned how to make sure the boats were the best that they could possibly be before we delivered them by watching what my parents did. I would follow my dad around when he would deliver a boat, and I learned everything from him. And as Steve started coming in, I was watching him, and he had the same attitude towards people as my dad did, that these aren't our customers, these are our friends. So they walk in as our customers, we get to know them. We've had people that's taken them 2 years to buy a boat from us, but in those 2 years, they've become our friends. And Steve has that same attitude. He cares. My dad always wanted, when someone left our dealership, to go to the lake and the first trip out to have such a wonderful time with their family. Not to go to the lake and call us and say, hey, this is wrong and this is wrong. So my dad lake tested every boat before we delivered it. Then he showed the customer how to use it. And it took time. It takes a lot of time. If you're delivering 3 boats in one day, you have a 12-hour day right there, because every customer, it takes 3 hours at least. And I saw the same thing in Steve. He cared about the customer, he cared about their experience, and he cares about their quality time with their family. And so it was a natural thing to bring him in, because he reminded me so much of that, how my dad was with our customers.
That's got to be cool for you, Melanie, to see that. And plus what you're doing, we all know what you're doing there is, well, first of all, it's the right thing is what you're doing, but what it creates, the effect is customers for life and organic referrals. I want all of their boat sales, and I want all their friends' boat sales, and I want to bring them into the family just like I did you. And that's awesome. I did notice, Steve, that your comments about, totally, Tony, did you hear the sales manager and Steve when he's talking about, it's a picture? Is it a fuzzy picture? How do we make it a clear picture for you, right?
I love that.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and I got to ask about the leg since you brought it up.
Yeah,
Steve, how does that play into, dare I say, closing a sale on the showroom floor or out on the water? Like, how does that play in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And early on, I remember the first time that I was sitting in a boat and there were some young kids, and I don't recall their ages, but somewhere in between 5 and 10 years old. And there were a couple of them, and we're sitting there. And of course, you get a varying types of people that are willing to ask, some that don't want to talk about it. It's the obvious elephant in the room. And 100% of the time, especially here in Arizona, I'm wearing shorts. And of course, they'll be like, oh, were you in the military? Did you lose your leg that way? And I'm like, no, it wasn't really that spectacular. And then I go, actually, I got run over by a boat. And sometimes you see varying responses, and you can see it on their faces. They're like, oh, and and we're sitting in this boat, and you sell boats. And it's a great lead in, because as we talked earlier on this podcast about the things that you do that are hard, the things that you do why do you do things that are hard? Because ultimately you learn and you grow from hard tribulation and from things that are going to challenge you. Hopefully that's what we all feel like. And if we don't, we want to figure out why we're not feeling that. And so I began to relate to people. I'd say, listen, I'll tell them the story about how I never lost my passion for boats. Was it scary to get back into the water and to throw a slalom ski back on in 1989? And as the rope was in my hands and my dad's like, go ahead and get in the water. And 10 feet from the boat, I see a boat a quarter mile away, and I lock up and I freeze and I say, get me back in the boat.
Steve,
yes.
really quick, and I want to continue answering that, but what was it that happened at 14 so that everybody understands what took place?
Yes. Thanks, Tony. I was water skiing with my family. We were newly down to Arizona, 14 years old. I just made the basketball team. Funny, Sam, because that was my passion. That was my life. I was, a little taller than everybody else. And so I thought, this is my identity, because I didn't have a great friend group. Went up to the lake, each invited a friend. My brother went, my sister went, and my dad. And I was water skiing down the side of the lake where you should be. and some people were water skiing as well, but they weren't paying attention to where they were going. And they just happened to go our direction, and I fell, and it was just like an intersection type accident where you thought, how does this happen? How does this get to this? And it was, next thing you know, I turned around and I fell. I turned around and I looked, and there was a boat coming 30 miles an hour at me and at 30 yards away. So it was 1, 2, 3, boom. And it was over in a matter of seconds, and it caught my ankle and went all the way up my leg to almost to my back and did a lot of damage. So that's kind of a thumbnail of how that happened. And your life changes, real quick, and you're going, wow, all right. And then you deal with the situation. Obviously, we don't have time on this podcast to go that deep into it, but you deal with the situation, then fast forward to so much information that I can't go over here. But then I had a dad that was a visionary, that was a glass half full always. And I remember sitting in the hospital, and I said, Dad, I'm never going to be able to ride my motorcycle again. I'm never going to be able to water ski again. What are you going to do? And he goes, son, yeah, you are. We're going to figure it out. And he meant it. And he was that guy that we figured it out. And that created that continued that fire of boats in my life, because we'd grown up boating. I grew up getting a sleeping bag thrown on the beach at Lake Palm and go to bed, and we'll wake up in the morning and we'll build sand castles and hydroslide and ski and go to Rainbow Bridge and have a great time. And so he kept that going. And so it created that passion in boating. And so fast forwarding ahead, when I relate to people, I go, accidents can happen. I could leave here from work and get in an accident intersection. The odds of probably getting run over by a boat are less than what you're going to get if you leave to go home from work and you get in a car accident. So when you start to relate to people that, hey, I use that, and it still is such a uniting force for me and my wife of 30 years and our 4 children and a grandson right now, that's what they want to do, is boat with grandpa. And so whatever that passion is it creates memories that last a lifetime. And that's what I want to share. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I love. And that's kind of how it ended up to that point. And people relate to that. They relate. I do. I relate to when you overcome and you triumph over something because we deal with those struggles every day. It never goes away, but if you can learn to manage it and overcome it and create triumph, and then you relate that into when you're buying this boat, it's going to create the memories. There's going to be struggles. Heck, maybe there's going to be struggles when your wife's trying to back the boat down the ramp, right? And he's yelling, or vice versa. But,
or vice versa. Way to throw that in there and backpedal.
Yeah, or vice versa. Hey, and it's true. You never know who's doing it, but there's struggle, but you overcome it. And so teaching those people, hey, I'll teach you how to back your boat down and make it comfortable, and we'll load it 3 or 4 different times. And anyway, it's creating that picture, right?
Yeah, fascinating story, man, and how we'll have to get you back on to do the transcendence from 14 until where you are now and everything that goes in the middle, because before we hit record, there was some pretty cool stuff you were telling us that you've managed to accomplish in your life. But this is about Century, and this is circling back to Melanie, and I want you to help answer this as well. But we kind of discussed the brands that you have had throughout the years, but circling back to that, Century, Supreme are 2 brands in a very big pond of surf boats. Yeah. How did you land these brands, and did you consider others inside the Correct Craft family? Melanie, I'll give that to you, and then I'll hit on you, Steve, as well.
So we did in 1988 pick up Nautique. So for a long time, we had both Centurion and Nautique. And when the economy fell in 2008, several dealers went out of business. And at that time, we also picked up Super and Moomba. So we did carry those brands. They weren't brands I mentioned earlier, but we did carry those brands. Nautique, we quit carrying in 2011. It became a matter of 2 high-end brands. And we needed to separate. And of course, at that time, 2010, 2011, things weren't selling. Boats weren't selling. And we just couldn't afford to keep stock of that expensive of a boat for those 2 boats. So we kept Super, Moomba, and Centurion and dropped Nautique at the time. And then eventually just stuck with Centurion. So yes, we have carried other brands. At the moment, we're not really considering. We're always considering it, but we're not seriously considering it.
If you
you're actively available, but yeah, it's.
I was going to say, if you went back to the well, would it be with Correct Craft? Are you happy with them as a brand? And was it just that Nautique and Centurion were premium? Would you go outside of the Correct Craft family, or?
Yeah, we would consider all brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are some brands that we wouldn't consider, and there are several brands we would consider. But right now we're very happy with Centurion. We have spent so many years building this brand up. My dad has always believed in Centurion. They have always built a solid product. They might not have always been the most plush until the last 10 years. Prior to that, they were more of an economical brand, but they were always the most solid built boat. And my dad just always believed in their quality of build and their care of the product. So we have just been happy to continue with them.
Yeah. That's great. Well, for our power sports people out there who aren't necessarily attuned to the marine industry, Correct Craft is the parent company, and there are multiple brands underneath that umbrella, including Nautique, which Melanie mentioned. Well, which Melanie mentioned, and then Centurion Supreme. So, hence my question about going outside the family. But let's get back to a couple weeks ago in Nashville. You guys scooped up an entire bag full of awards. I thought it was super cool just being there, getting excited for you. We had others in our 20 club that, Mitch and Ski Doc and a bunch of those guys got awards too, and that was just really cool. So I want to ask you a little bit about that, Melanie. First of all, Steve, did you have anything to add on those brands? Tony said he'd come back to you, and I kind of cut him off there.
No, you're great. That was well covered by Melanie. I entered in about 2012. I had left a corporate gig that I had done for a year and a half, and then jumped back in when Melanie and Bruce made the big decisions like, hey, we're going to run with Centurion. Mm-hmm. And so this is a lot of that is where a lot of this started, even though we knew each other well before then and had worked here and there. But then we started to build the Centurion brand and commit to it, and really go through that process of deep diving in and commitment to that Centurion product and the Supreme product at the same time, and put your heart and soul into it and do what needed to be done as a collective group to make it happen.
That's great. Well, given your title, sales manager and customer service guru, you had a lot to do with these awards. And when everybody hears the title of the awards, you'll know what I'm talking about. So either one of you feel free to take these. But I'm going to rattle off the 3 awards that I know you got, and maybe there were more that I missed, but I don't think so. The Customer Service Excellence Award, Market Impact Award, 80 to 200 foot boat market, Western Regional Dealer of the Year, 80 to 200 unit boat market. Sorry about that. That's some big boats.
We're selling some big boats these days.
I didn't know Centurion was into yachts. And then Western Regional Dealer of the Year. So, Steve, let me start with you just because of your title. Unpack those for us. How do you guys end up netting those awards? What is it you're doing right or wrong? And maybe we can dissect a couple of those once we learn a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the Customer Service Award, and I'll let Melanie parlay off of this as well, we made a concerted effort long ago that when she mentioned that we're lake testing every boat, and a lot of times we'll go on a lake test, and it can be kind of comical at times because she'll text me and she's like, "You've been gone like 5 hours. Is everything going okay? Has something happened out on the lake?" And people are telling me, it's like, "You have the greatest job in the world. You're up in the lake." And I'm like, "It's 1:15 and my prosthetic leg's sweating about ready to fall off, and I'm having a great time up here by myself." But at the end of the day, what you're doing is that you are polishing and cleaning up that picture, right? If there's any issues, if there's any problems, anything at all, even though 99% of the time the boat's pretty good and ready, but there's going to be those situations where there's stuff that reveals itself and that you're taking care of and that you're noting and you're documenting, and then we're sending it back and we're getting it done. So what that translates into at the end of the day is that when you deliver that boat to that customer, you're confident, you're secure in what you know. And then if something does arise, you're that far ahead of the schedule. You're that far ahead of the 8-ball, so to speak. And then when you let them know, it's like, "Hey, you're going to get a survey. We would love for you to fill it out in an honest way. And if we've done our jobs and we have delivered that picture of perfection to them, then they're going to fill it out honestly." And then the follow through is huge. The follow through at that point, after the point of sale, and making sure that they have direct contact to somebody. And I made a concerted effort like, hey, there's those days where they have your cell phone. And, I've had calls at, 6 a.m. and they're like, hey, we're at the lake and the boat won't start. And I'm trying to back it off the trailer. And I'm sitting here, going, really, what could be wrong? And I go, do me a favor, let's go down the checklist. Is your boat in neutral? And then you hear them wiggle the throttle and they go from being really upset to being their instant best friend and you're their savior all of a sudden. And that's a great feeling. So those are the good ones. But you don't leave the big raw ends raw. Kind of like we'll go deeper dive earlier, we're talking about nerves, right? You don't want raw nerve endings. Those hurt when they get touched. So I think that's part to that. And that ties in with customer service. And I'll let Melanie go on West. I think they tie into the Western Region Dealer of the Year. I think that's all tied in, but that's a little bit of my thoughts on that.
Well, I actually was thinking the other day, and David Nielsen came in yesterday, and I said, David, I was thinking about this, and you're actually a third generation customer of ours. And a lot of that is based on, taking care of his grandpa. His uncle was a good friend of mine in high school and bought a boat from us. And now I know his dad very well too, and now he came in and he's bought his second boat from us. And that 3 generations, it just made me reflect on the fact that, again, we are still doing what my parents built. That relationship with the customer is the most important thing. There are times that we're not going to sell the most boats in the state, but the people that we sell to are going to be our friends. And so that is, in my opinion, how our customer satisfaction, that's how we win the awards, is because each person gets that personal touch. It's not, I sold you the boat, here's the service department, see you later. They know if there's an issue, maybe the service department, they don't feel like they know them very well yet, that they can call Steve or they can come into my office, and they know they can do that. And we're going to help walk them through. We're going to make sure that the service guys know who they are. We're going to make sure they understand certain situations, and we're going to make sure that over time, they then build that relationship with the service department. It's easier just to hand them over and wash your hands and say, I sold you the boat, enjoy the service department. But we're very careful about that transition so that they can now build that relationship with them while still maintaining it with us.
As far as the 80 to 200 boat market, I mean, every dealer in the Valley and across the United States is going to get numbers, right? Registration. They're going to know their market share and where they're at. And Melanie and I love to sit back and reminisce back in 2012, 13, 14, 15 in the growth. And when we were like, hey, we are at the bottom. We're at the bottom. And we don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. This is our product. This is what we got. We're sticking with it and we love it. We love the people. We love the climate. So what do we need to do to get there? And if you're just kind of throwing a hook in the water with no bait on it, or the bait's not working, then you got to mix something up. But we would look at those numbers and I say this to Melanie all the time. I'm like, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. If someone has something that they're doing, figure out why it's working and make it even better than they're doing. And so there's those days that you lose a sale because maybe it's just a financial transaction to that person and it's just a numbers game. And they're just at the end of the day, like, well, I don't want it to be just a financial transaction. I want it to be that if it's a $10, $15, $20,000 difference, you still want to buy from me. And that kind of bled off into when we capture those people, then they're telling what we mentioned earlier, hey, it's not just about the product. These products, there's a lot of good products out on the market today. It's about the quality of the picture. It's about the quality of the people, as Melanie said. And I relate to Bruce in that. His passion, even though he comes in and he's not an everyday integral part of just that customer relations, it drives me because I'm like, hey, you built this. I want to continue that legacy for you. My dad was the same way when he built his employee leasing company and sold it out. It's because people liked him. People were attracted to him. How are you creating that attraction? And then next thing you know, you start eating into the market share. And then you find out, how can we do it better? How can we do it even more? And so I love that. I think there's a connection there to trying to bottle that somehow.
And in the other part of the market share is there are some things that we've changed. Steve is putting out a lot more videos. And so it's easy for us to send videos to people. So some of it is in the decisions that we've made in our marketing, online marketing, video conversations, Steve being and our sales team being available all the time, because customers aren't available from 9 to 5. Some of them are, but
Sure.
they're not available from 9 to 5. And so you have to be available when they're available. And we're willing to do that. And Steve is, there are times he's like, yeah, I was up till 10 o'clock at night talking to so-and-so, and he's ready to buy. You have to be willing to make those sacrifices to create that, to gain that market share. So because of word of mouth, because of a lot of the videos Steve's been posting lately, he's been gaining a pretty good following. That's how we've been gaining our market share, by being available, always available to our customer.
Tony, did you hear we got a sales guy that loves to send videos? Did you hear that part?
I heard it. I hope that everybody listening to this actually heard that again.
It's possible. Yes.
For the most infinitest time. But going from customer service, which you guys are talking about, which is catering to the people that you're taking care of, to community service and community involvement. There's a lot of dealerships, and Sam and I were talking about this. It's very apparent that those dealers that participate in, community involvement, Ski Dock, Boardco, and obviously you guys, how important are community events, and how often do you run them? And give us maybe your 3 best that you guys have going and why they're important.
So it's funny because Steve mentioned about watching husband and wives yell at each other on the launch ramp. I learned years ago that when I am on the water, in fact, I have a customer, I have 2 quick stories I'll tell you. I have a customer I was delivering a boat to. I was teaching him and his wife how to use the boat on the water. And I said, Steve, it's Tom Farnsworth. And I said, you two are not husband and wife. You two are not allowed to talk to each other. I am going to teach you guys, and you can't talk to each other. Because what they do is I'll be teaching the wife, and he'll be like, she said not to do that. So you two can't talk to each other. I'm the only one that can talk. So, learning that experience. I have another customer that took his family to the lake. He launched the boat. He said, okay, to his wife, I'm going to drive it off. All you have to do is drive the truck and trailer and go park it. That's all you have to do. He didn't see her for a long time. He called her and he said, where are you? She said, I just couldn't do it. So I just drove home. Just call me when you're done and I'll come back. So we started Women Making Wakes, and women teaching women how to launch, how to load, how to drive the boat on the water, how to dock. Now, I will say it's not just women teaching women, because I do bring Steve in. Steve is very patient. He's has a very calm voice. So he's just as good at teaching women or anybody else. So he does come in sometimes to help us with that. So that's one. And they really seem to enjoy it. I have actually had women say when they leave, I feel so confident that I actually feel like there are other things I can do now, not just this. So
Damn,
it's pretty
look at
amazing.
this. I mean, I get the guru part now. There's other things that I think I can do in life because of Steve-O. This is wow. Stay away from my wife,
that
please.
That sounded that way, but it wasn't. But nice pickup, Tony. That was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. He's way too humble for his own good. Then we also have the Arizona Adaptive Water Sports Group, which is a group that came to my parents about 30 years ago and asked if they would donate boats and come drive for those with disabilities, whether it be brain injuries, missing limbs. We have paraplegics. We have, you name it, anyone with any kind of disability. And so we've continued with that, and we've taken it into now not just water skiing and wakeboarding, but also surfing. So again, we have had veterans. We've had, we have a couple of blind people. We have one blind girl that, she was born with sight and she lost it over time. She now competes in wake surfing. We have a couple of seated wake surfers that now compete. In fact, one of them is on Centurion's wake surf team now. And, some of these guys are guys that refuse to leave their house. I mean, this change of life crumpled them. And it took a lot of coaxing from their friends and from the hospital to get them to come to our events. And they come and it completely changes their life. We've had some that have started dating, some that have gone to college, some that have gotten married. I mean, just completely changed their life by letting them know that, water is healing. Come to the lake, let the water heal you, and you can grow from this. There's so much more in life for you.
Yeah, I second that, Melanie. If I may jump in real quick, and I'll share with you guys a quick, great story about that. Is I took up 2 paraplegics last year. And Melanie said, hey, Troy, why don't you jump in with them? You can be the jet ski guy so that you can chase behind them if they fall down. And then someone jumps off the jet ski and make sure that they're upright and getting air. And so we did that for about 3 hours. And, it was that moment where you take that picture and that person's in this paraplegic's in this wake surf board contraption cage, and the one-legged boat driver's driving, which is me, and you're just feeling this euphoria, and you got Zach Bryan or some great song, something in the orange playing, and you're just like, this is it, and he's got his one arm in the air. He's like, Steve, this is the best day of my life.
That's awesome.
And then he falls, and I turn the boat around, and I come back, and Troy's on the jet ski, and he looks at both of us, and Scott Korsmeyer, I'm picking him up out of the water and kind of helping him, and we're just like, man, we feel it. We feel this power, this triumph right now. And Troy goes, man, guys, he goes, I've been sitting on this jet ski for like 3 hours. My legs are killing me. and Scott and I looked at each other, and we looked at Troy, and we go, and what's the problem? And really, and we just had that moment. And so that's it right there. That unity, that strength is that sometimes you don't want to go. And then that moment hits where you go, that's why we do it. Yeah. And I thought it was just a fun story. Yeah.
We started doing the adaptive division we have a competition that is part of the wake surf, world's wake surf competition. So we're a stop and we asked Centurion, can we do an adaptive division? Because so many of our athletes are just loving this. This is their favorite thing. So that's how the adaptive division started for Wake Surf Worlds, is our Arizona athletes wanting to participate. And now they will travel and go to Worlds and go to a couple of the other competitions. So it's been amazing to see.
How
That's
cool.
awesome.
I hope you have like a wall or something celebrating that, and pictures and something cool inside the dealership. That's amazing. Hey, I'm going to shift gears with you here. And here's the thing in the room that people either love talking about or don't want to talk about at all, and that's artificial intelligence. So it just shut off Melanie's light again right there. AI just jumped right in on it. That was probably Mitch Mann.
The timing of that. Mitch Mann was he somehow got this.
He's
right?
like, now click that off. Speaking of which, Mitch Mann from Boardco, very much into AI. We hope to have him on the podcast here in January. But I'm wondering, where are you? Where are you guys sitting on the sidelines with AI? Are you in the wait and see mode? Are you actively involved? Are you hoping it will go away? And either one of you can take that answer. Whoever might have the stronger answer. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to jump in first. Just I want to learn more about AI. So Mitch, who you mentioned, he's been on this bandwagon from day one, right? And he this last year said, "Hey, we're writing this program." And we did it for Boardco, and we got a lot of feedback from this AI ads we've been doing. And so we did it for our Boardco in Idaho. We got a lot of feedback on that, but we want to try something completely different. Can we use you? Century Marine and run the same thing and see what happens. I'm like, of course, absolutely. They did, and the response was unbelievable, better than we have ever had of any of our marketing. And so I'm 100% on it. I just need to implement it more. I have I have gone back to Mitch and I've said, "Hey, can you run this one for me too?" But, we've got to, get our own plan in place, but I will tell you I've been amazed by it. AI is both good and bad, but let's utilize the good as much as we can.
And is there anything you can share with our listening audience about what was it that he ran? I don't mean the secret sauce, but like what kind of campaign did he run?
So we were doing boat demos, on the water boat demos, which we like to do every, few months. We like to just do an open boat demo, whoever is available. We of course call our potential clients, but then we just want to open it up to anybody, right? And he saw that we were running one on our own. And he said, "Can we run one for you?" And, using our AI programs. Yes, absolutely. Within 2 days, we were booked.
Wow.
It usually takes us, if we get booked completely, it usually takes us 3-4 weeks of continuing to push and push and push.
Yeah.
And we were booked. We had to shut it off.
That's it. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I reached out to him at the start of the year and I said, Mitch, I want to come see you and hang out and talk about AI. And he's like, "I'm not there yet. I want you to come, but I'm not there yet." So hopefully by the start of this next year, maybe even if Tony and I have to pack up the gear and go to him, we're going to get him on the podcast. Maybe it's a 2-hour podcast and say, "Lay it out, dude. There's no secret sauce," but super cool that you had that experience with him. Hopefully continue to replicate those.
Yeah, the negative parts of AI is my team likes to play jokes on me.
Oh.
And they're like, "Hey, that boat that was just picked up?" And they'll show me a video of the boat sliding off the trailer into the street. And I'm, of course, panicking, going, "What happened?" And they're like, "It's just AI."
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think your balance, if I just jump in on as far as the AI thing, is I've thought about it. We can all get on Grok or Chat GPT and you're like, "Hey, write me a talk on this subject." And then you can give them more detail and you can give them more detail. So that balance of not taking away like the personability of who you are and your character and how you're adding that into the equation, but also implementing AI into it to help you polish it and clean it up, to make it really, and to grab, because that's what's grabbing people even more effectively, is that they're like, "Man, this is so polished and this is so good. It's drawing me to it." And so I love it because it helps you become a more polished retail dealership and service. And so you're balancing those two things out. And so, yeah, there's a level of making sure that you're doing both and incorporating both and covering it on both ends. I think it can be a valuable, no question, a valuable tool. I think Melanie and I we were like, "Wow, this is awesome."
Yeah.
And we got quality leads on it. We got quality people. And then what helped us sell some product is, but are you covered on after that gets them in the door? Are you as quality as that AI and what it's provided for you?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
You're certainly more human and it's more real.
Right.
Yeah, transitioning from AI into what I think is a seamless question is what does it look like buying a boat for a customer for the next 5 years? What's that shopping experience looking like in the next 5 years?
I think that the customer buying experience, we've seen it change tremendously over the last few years. And that's one thing that Steve and I have talked about since we got back from, it's been a subject for a while, but specifically since we got back from the dealer meeting, listening to some of the comments you made, Sam, and some of the other dealers, the comments they made is, how can we make not just the buying experience, but the ownership experience easier for our customers? It might make it harder for us. It might make it harder for our employees. They might have to do more. But how do we make it easier? Because right now, I think that's what the consumer needs. And I believe that's what the future is the easiness of the purchase, the easiness of the follow-up, the easiness of getting that serviced. And so we are trying to look at ways to simplify even just the service, bringing my boat in for service. We're trying to find ways to simplify that for our customer so that their experience from the beginning to their next boat and their next boat and their next boat is just easier all the time.
Great answer.
Yeah, very interesting. Fantastic. Steve Osborne, Melanie Bosley, Bloomfield, Century Marine, thank you guys so much for taking the time. Fascinating stories. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. So for Steve, Melanie, and Sam Dantzler, I'm Tony Gonzalez. This has been GarageCast. Have a fantastic Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.